Hello, this is my review for Oppenheimer, the 2023 film directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Emily Blunt, Alden Ehrenreich, Florence Pugh, Jason Clarke, Rami Malek. I want to start off by saying I really enjoyed this film. I thought this film felt different, felt like it was made differently. It was written differently. It just had a overall use that word again. It just felt different compared to a lot of other films that we've gotten over the past few years. I feel like this film will be remembered for incredibly long, for decades. I feel like this film will be remembered for by future generations. They'll look back and they'll rewatch this film, and this film will keep its place in our culture, in filmmaking, and it'll be remembered by many filmmakers, by people who watch the films, people who make the films. It'll be remembered. I want to start by saying I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan. I've seen the overwhelming majority of his films. I really enjoyed Interstellar. I thought Inception was fantastic. I loved the Dark Knight trilogy. I thought Dunkirk was a well-made film. I thought he's a fairly I'd say he's an incredibly talented man. I've enjoyed his work quite a bit. I want to talk about the performances by Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. Their acting was excellent. Their acting was absolutely spectacular. I feel like they did a great job with what they were given. They were the main central. They were the two pillars that was holding up the bridge, acting wise, and in some other areas I'd say like they were carrying the film on their backs. They did a great job, both of them. I liked the supporting cast. I liked Matt Damon, Emily Blunt, Alden Ehrenreich, Florence Pugh, Jason Clarke, Rami Malek, and I also liked the actor who played Albert Einstein, who had a supporting role in The Dark Knight Rises. I liked those actors. Soundtrack by Ludwig Göransson, who was the composer for Black Panther, the composer for The Mandalorian, and I believe he also did the soundtrack for Tenet, Christopher Nolan's previous film. I would also say that the cinematography was great. I liked I would say that one of the biggest positives for the film was how complex a person Oppenheimer was portrayed to be. He wasn't just some hero who could do no wrong. He wasn't just like he was this great guy with no flaws. He wasn't just someone who showed up in the time of need and saved the day. He had a few mistakes, a few skeletons in his closet, if you will. I want to talk about the explosion scene. The explosion scene when the bomb goes off was brilliant. That was a fantastic scene. Loved it. I thought that scene was just done incredibly well. I'd probably say my two favourite nuclear explosion scenes, other than this one previously, were Godzilla in 2014 and The Wolverine from 2013. I'd say they had great nuclear explosion scenes. I liked the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull explosion scene. I also liked the 1998 Godzilla. I like that opening explosion, even though I think they used actual real life footage for nuclear explosions. I would say this one was just fantastic. I would say maybe the biggest flaw was that we never got a wide shot. We didn't get to see the nuclear explosion from all the way out, like an aerial shot or an extremely wide shot. It was mostly what the effects, what the reaction was by the people around, which I suppose you could maybe say makes the film feel more personal. Maybe I would say that another scene that I just really enjoyed, I really liked, was the scenes with the horses. I suppose I've always kind of loved horseback charges in films and TV shows, and Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. I thought their horseback scenes were fantastic, and I thought the scenes here were solid. I liked them. I'm already mentioned the cinematography, that the way that the scenes looked, the filmmaking that was on display here was superb. I thought the film's main positive, I'd probably say, was I'll just mention before that. I mentioned the visual effects scenes that they had were great. They were very few and far between, but there was a few visual effects scenes. I know Christopher Nolan did the explosion scene, the bomb scene at the Trinity test. He did that practical effects, which is quite. It's something to behold. That's truly a feat in its own right. And I wouldn't be surprised if this broke the Guinness World Record book for the biggest explosion on a film set. I know that was previously held by Spectre. Wouldn't surprise me if Christopher Nolan's taken that record for himself. I want to say that the visual effects, when they were used, were solid, but I would also say that the biggest positive and why I think this film is so has been received so well and has made over $900 million at the worldwide box office is that it's incredibly relevant with what's going on in the world. And I've also just been watching a few documentaries as of late about nuclear bombs, about the Trinity test, about Russia and America's nuclear tests, France, Britain and China developing nuclear weapons, the nuclear fission versus nuclear fusion, the hydrogen bomb, everything that's been happening, everything that happened round about that time with these weapons being built, and how the power that they possess, the most powerful nuclear weapons versus the original nuclear weapons, Fat Man and Little Boy, that were dropped on Japan. I've just been researching a lot into nuclear weapons, and so this film was something that I was looking forward to. I've seen it twice, and I'm planning on buying it on DVD or Blu-ray. And I would say that, just to conclude my review here, Robert Oppenheimer is probably one of the most influential men in human history. He is most likely in that category of the greats that have changed the world. And this film, with the director, with Christopher Nolan as the director, with a cast like this, solid composer, pretty impressive cinematography. I would say that the fact that so much of it was real, the scenes that they had CGI were solid, they were fantastic, but you see sets, you see the places that they've gone to, you see actual people interacting with each other. The fact that the explosion scene that Christopher Nolan went for, the bomb, the fact that the Trinity test is a practical explosion with, obviously not with an actual nuclear weapon, but with other devices, TNT and other explosions, I'm sure. That is truly that's breathtaking. That takes your breath away. That is unbelievable. I just want to say that this film, it was solid, this was well made, and I'm definitely going to be rewatching it. Thanks for watching my review.